Welcome back.
So the whole point of it being like, oh, it's the left, it's the right. I'm a constitutional abolitionist. I want it gone.
Oh,
who's the Constitution written
yuck.
for?
It's written for the original American colonists who started this country,
Which were
largely white Protestants.
so it was written for white men that own land, right?
Mostly, yes.
Yeah, perfect. And after that, everyone
That
else
woman
has
is
been
me.
given rights, right?
They've not been given rights. I would argue that over a long enough period of time, there's been advocacy to make the Constitution protect against a government infringement. The Constitution
So
doesn't give
given
you
the rights that protect the white men that own land, everyone else.
I don't think we're just.
We almost didn't have a constitution because of slavery. That's why we have the 3/5 compromise between the North and the South. They wanted to expand westward and they needed representation. So essentially the people in the South were saying, well, our slaves, they're our property, but we're going to count them as people when it helps us. And they said, no, you can't. So the compromise was that they could only count 3 of every 5 slaves. And this helped stop the westward expansion. This gave them limited representation. And that's how we were able to eventually have enough power to end slavery.
Agreeing. I'm saying the Constitution doesn't give us the rights. It stops the government from doing things.
Yeah, sure. It gives you the protection from blah, blah, blah. Fine.
Yeah, and it was like overwhelmingly white European male
So the point that
landowners.
I'm making is we've seen throughout the history of our country that other people have been attacked, right? Every other marginalized group has been attacked. There's been amendments. There's been back and forth whether people do or do not have access to rights. The whole point that I'm getting to is the United States Constitution needs to be thrown out completely.
There's not a single right that I have that this guy does not have right now. And he still wants to throw out the document that morphed and eventually did protect all people. There was institutionalized slavery throughout the world. At the end of the Revolutionary War, 95% of the world was practicing slavery. Yet the United States had slavery banned in 7 of its 13 states. And the rest of the world had only banned it in 7 countries. Make it make sense.
Thomas Jefferson agrees with me.
Well,
Thomas
that's an
Jefferson said that the Constitution should be rewritten every 19 years. Now, around that time, they were dying early, so I'm thinking it's like 50 years or whatever. But he made the point that if we actually have legislation, laws, or a constitution that governs people in the future based off of what we've written, then we're doing an injustice. So saying that we should uphold something that was written 250
He was saying that there should be some kind of amendment to it every generation.
years ago, when I was 3/5 of a person, like
that is not what that means. It does not mean you were 3/5 of a person. It means that they were counting 3 out of 5 slaves, not black people, slaves, so that they would have less representation to grow more slavery.
what are we doing?
Oh, back then it was worse than that.
Yeah, no.
Compromise income
Have you read the 1619 Project?
Oh my God.
Okay, cool. The reason the Constitution and the way the United States government is set up, it's literally because the founding fathers were slave owners. They were raised as slave owners that wanted to uphold that power, and they wanted to give the power to the state.
Well, there's a lot of context missing from that. You're familiar with the issue of the Declaration of Independence in South Carolina and Georgia. Thomas Jefferson was angry with the king for bringing slaves to the colonies. I'm not saying he wasn't a racist.
No, he wasn't.
When Thomas Jefferson wrote the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, this guy should read that, okay? This guy is retarded. King George has waged a cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life, liberty, and the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery, into another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. This piratical warfare, the opprobrium of underlined infidel powers, is the warfare of the underlined print Christian king of Great Britain, underlined, determined to keep open a market where all caps men should be bought and sold. He has prostituted his negative for suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or restrain the underlined execrable commerce. Yeah, that really sounds like King George was a hero here in this. What a retard.
He wanted to include a provision.
One of the biggest reasons for the Revolutionary War is because Britain no longer wanted to uphold
Is he
slavery.
Well, I mean, retarded?
The colonies wanted to because they had been so successful as far as making money. The colonies, period.
The Southern colonies did.
The colonies period.
I mean,
Now, after the Civil War, then they shifted away where you saw kind of a split where the northern colonies didn't want it as much as the southern colonies.
Well, that was before the Civil
That's
War.
besides the point.
This is around 1820, in fact.
No, I'm saying after the
Around 18.
not after the Civil War. I'm sorry, after the Revolutionary War.
Right. So yes, very shortly after the Revolutionary War, Thomas Jefferson had written a statement for the Declaration that stated, "The king has brought people to this land to wage war against us," something to that effect. And South Carolina and Georgia contested to its inclusion in the Declaration because they wanted slavery so bad. But don't get me wrong, all of the colonists did. We agree on
one
that.
of the biggest drivers was the fact that there was a slave that was in the colonies, and his slave owner took him to Britain, and Britain actually had a rule that no one could be slaves, and so he was able to win his freedom for being in Britain, and that shook the foundation of the colonies, which forced them to actually push forward the Revolutionary War and then come with the United States Constitution.
That is
The point I'm trying to make
retarded.
is the United States Constitution needs to be abolished.
This is
because it does not protect
1619
all
propaganda.
people. We need to completely rewrite the United States Constitution and give protection.
What
to
lines
everyone.
need to be
Everyone
rewritten?
needs to have equal
What
rights
lines?
under the protection of the law. We can.
So
we
let
can
me
go
ask
They
you-
back and forth
took
about
out
it.
the
Do you-
three-fifths
do you think
compromise.
that you're allowed to have the opinion you like the Constitution, all that stuff? I'm not going to argue. How do you think this country would react if you were successful in abolishing the Constitution?
Yeah, I think that it'll be a violent revolution.
Pause here. We are out of time.
Communist revolution.